Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be host today on Arch Talk 101 with my guest, Bill Iversen. And we'll get kicked off and we'll just introduce and welcome to the show. Bill?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, we're just gonna, talk about archery. That's what the channel's all about is talking about archery. And when did you get started in archery?
Um, I would have to say I probably got started in high school around that time. There was an archery program at Downers Grove South Community High School where I went. So back in back 94, 5, they had a archery program, and I liked that. So it was basic like long bows and field stuff. Started off, actually it was archery and flag football, and I played football back in the day. So it kind of, the archery was secondary. I wanted to play the flag football, but as I got into it, I was like, this is pretty cool, and I stuck with it ever since. 20 some years later.
Yeah, that's quite a story. I started in the 60s with just an old fiberglass recurve bow and Ben Pearson.
Nice,
I still have it. I won't shoot it because the
awesome.
fiberglass starting to come apart, but archery is something you can do from very young age to very old age. There's really no
Absolutely.
limit. As long as you can pull the bow back, you're good. So
Yep, absolutely. I went from that, and I'd always been into fishing and outdoors stuff. So archery was kind of a sport, and then you discover 18, right out of high school, bow hunting, and that nobody in my immediate family really hunted. Um, a couple cousins, or a cousin and her friends had upland and waterfowl, and then one of the guys, Dan, he was into bow hunting, so I kind of I remember picking his brain a little bit about it, and then I started getting into it, and I I bought a old Martin Cougar Magnum back in the day, and I had that, and I don't even remember what happened to it. Something broke, and 18, 19 years old. Instead of fixing things, you just buy a new one.
right.
I had an older PSE like with cables on it, and learned how to finger shoot off that, with like the old solid metal pins, and I just progressed from there.
Yeah, I remember those. Um, as you can see, my shirt. Let's see what PSE. I was a
Right.
PSE dealer for several years, and
Okay.
those old Nova bows were really, really good bow, inexpensive, beginner. With the steel
Right.
cables and you just had one string to make. The cables lasted for years and years. And
Hmm.
when I was down at the PSE school, they taught us how to make those steel cables, and you have to make them in
Okay.
pairs, and you can't adjust them, so they have to be basically dead on. You can't be off by much because there's no adjusting them. And
Right.
I remember, back then when I had my store, even 20 years ago, that they were like 20 bucks for a set of cables to buy the raw cables. Last time I heard, they were over $100 a piece. And try and find somebody that's willing to make them, because if you mess one up, you got to start over. And you know it's just not worth it now, because now everything is all,
Right.
strings, cables and everything, and they're much easier to make because they start going bad, just making new ones. And I make my own strings and cables, so I need a new one, I just make one.
Yeah.
Want a different color, just make a new one.
Right. That's one thing I never got into, was making my own cables and that. I always just brought it into the pro shop and had those guys do it for me, or bought the factory, because I used to shoot Matthews. Once I got into
Yeah.
it more, I was like the diehard Matthews guy. I had to have it. Whatever it was, I'd buy them, and the money I've spent over the years.
Yeah. Well, you'd bring it into guys like me, because that's what I had. Is I had a pro shop that I did that kind of stuff.
Right.
And when I had my
Hmm.
shop, I didn't stock any strings. In fact, the strings that were left over from the previous few owners back, I still have when I close the store, because I never stock them, because you come in an hour later, you got a new string exactly for your bow. You don't have to worry about it,
Right.
because you've got this model of Matthews, this model of Matthews, and they're different. This model of PSC is different from this model of PSC and the Hoyts, and they're all different. So you can't stock, all these because they're different. So it's much easier to just make them. Then you just make whatever wants and whatever color they want. You're not
Right.
stuck to the big one was the zebra ones, the black and white. It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's
the
boring.
zebra barracudas. That's what I
Yeah.
used to had to
Yeah.
have the zebra barracudas.
Yeah, and now it's like there's like 20 or some different colors, so you can make
Oh,
string
yeah.
combination colors. And I did a guy had bought a target bow. It was kind of in a maroon type color target bow, and I needed to make new strings for it because the size, the draw length that he needed, they didn't have. So they sent in the new cams for it, but then I was waiting on the strings. So I said, I'm not waiting for strings. I just make them. So because it was kind of a maroonish color, I had a color called Mountain Berry, which kind of like
Okay.
kind of I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of a maroon color and silver. So I made him new strings
Okay.
and cables and all that for that. And he bought it over here, and he was in Israel.
Oh,
So when he come back, so it's waiting for the bow, and we made it all up. And when I sent back, I just had the work order, warranty repair, and sent it back to him, take it back home.
right. Nice.
So
Yeah, it's. So I'm sorry, go on.
oh yeah. So I just want get into your journey, from when you started back in high school, where you progressed there, and kind of the different things that you've done.
So after high school, like I said, I had gotten a couple of that old Ben Pearson and the old PSE, and I really didn't know, I guess, how to hunt. And I still don't. You learn something new every time you go out. Every person you talk to, every individual I speak to, there's always something to be learned, and I'm a firm believer in that. So I just, would always try to strike up a conversation, or from anybody I could, or anybody that was willing to even speak on it. I'd listen and try to take something in and learn and acquire, and and just try to better myself and get to where I'm at. And still, there's quite a ways. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
I started doing 3D a lot. Once I got my first Matthews, I bought a used Q. I don't even remember what Q something or another
Q2.
97, 47, something like that. When I was probably 25, 6, and I was recently married, just had a baby. So to spend, that kind of money on a bow was like, it was a big thing for me. I'm driving an old beater truck, and well, how am I going to get better at hunting? How am I going to become a better bow hunter? Right. So I started doing 3D, and oddly enough, I got pretty decent at 3D. I started winning, started bringing home trophies. My $10 entrance fee, and I'd get a couple bucks for a snack, and I'd hook up with these guys. And it got to the point where I was with one of the older guys that I would shoot with all the time. He 12 ringed a small bobcat cheetah target, at 40, 50 yards, and jokingly I was like, I'm gonna Robin Hood that, you watch. And he goes, yeah, no you ain't. Sure enough, I did. And actually, I have, coincidentally, I have that old arrow right here. When these Carbon Express Maxima hunters had first came out,
Yeah.
everybody was still shooting the longer fletchings, and I was like, I got the shorter ones, and everybody's like, what is that? That ain't gonna work. And I was always trying new stuff, and sure enough, I did. I Robin Hooded right there, and everybody in the group laughed, and I'm like, pay up, sucker, you owe me $20. I'm not paying it. You owe me 20. You destroyed my arrow, So, just, and it kind of, I remember that moment. And after that, I was like, I am pretty good at this. I like archery a lot. And I started doing it all the time, like in the backyard, like just repetitive, just muscle memory. And there was an older guy, and I don't even know if he's alive any longer. There was a senior guy at the bow shop, and he used to shoot recurve a lot. He made cables, he made strings, which is again a dying art, like we had talked about. And he started drilling into me muscle memory stuff, and now shooting at 18 meters blindfolded or with your eyes closed, because at 18 meters, it's just at that point, it's just your body taking over.
Right.
And I remember starting to blow fletchings off and that, and being like, all right, and it just, all that did was help. And then guesstimate of yardage, there was never a guesstimate. It was just, I knew what it was. I was always, right there on a deer or whatever it was, or on the 3D course. And then 3D, well, where we live up in Northern Illinois, like outside of Chicago, there's only a handful of 3D courses. And it kind of got boring. It was like the same thing over and over and over and over, So
Yeah.
I kind of fell out of it. I stopped. I mean, unless you want to travel, go to Wisconsin for like the Reinhardt 100 or whatever, and that kind of thing. But as far as, something the average guy could do, especially with having, now at this point, I have another child, so a toddler and a newborn, you can't really take off every weekend to go do this. It was like a Sunday morning thing, leave at 7, be home by 10:30, So that's kind of where that went. And then it just progressed into bow hunting. I then kind of got out of it. Just life happened, and I, excuse me, got away from it. As I started getting back into it, about a year later, I suffered an injury. I broke my neck, crushed my spinal cord, and they said I was going to lose, a majority of the feeling in my hands, a majority of, the doctor's like, you're not going to be able to shoot a bow again. You'll lose fine motor skill and, multiple other things. And I had sent the doctor pictures of everything he said I wouldn't do. I did, and sent him pictures to prove it. Not going to draw a bow back. It was a doe, but whatever. Here's a picture of the doe I shot.
Yeah.
Your reproductive stuff may not operate. Well, here's a picture of the baby we just had. You're not going to be able to, fine motor skill and thread bolts in for work. Well, here I am under a car working. So everything you said I couldn't do, I did. The only thing he was correct on is fingers and toes get real cold now in the cold weather. Like it's bad. That's the only thing and that could be because of the titanium holding my head on,
Oh, yeah, it could be. Yeah.
But at that point, I the one thing I did notice in cold weather, like right now, it's lows of like low 40, highs are in the 50s here in Northern Illinois, right? We're coming right into the pre-rut. And to hold that full draw in a stand after you've been sitting motionless for 2-3 hours at a time, I shake, and I don't have the muscle capacity in the neck to hold. So I did ultimately end up having to go to the crossbow. I could still shoot 3D if I wanted to and kept up practice wise, but in that cold weather, I don't trust myself to ethically do it, any longer on a wild animal. Because I shake, I can't, the cold affects my hands, and I lose the feeling, when I'm holding the bow, when I have, the handle is, cupped in the hand, and then on the trigger, I can't really feel when it's time to release as well as I used to. And I don't want to, do something unethical and make a poor shot, poor shot on a target's one thing, poor shot on a deer is a whole nother. So I did have to go to the crop.
Well, and that's still archery. My definition of archery is a stick with a string flinging another stick. Does it fit that category? Then it's archery.
Right. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of negative towards the crossbow guys on social media these days, and it's like, what? Okay, so 80% let off, magnifiers, you're still using something mechanical to release, unless you're using a longbow with wooden arrows and flint broadheads. Like, I don't want to hear it,
Right. Yeah, everything, all the modern advances, make it easier. You still got to pick your spot. You still got to get there. You're still not going to have that long range. It's not like a rifle where you could shoot 100 yards. You're not going to shoot a crossbow 100 yards. Nice thing about them, they're faster. So they're fairly flat, 20, 30. There's not a lot of difference, but between 20 and 30 and 40, there is a difference,
Right.
Not a huge amount.
Let's be realistic. In the deer woods, you're not worried, 20, 30, most shots are 20, 15, and that it's close quarters,
Yeah. Yeah, and you still got the really close shots. I've had them so close that I could reach out and almost smack them. Yeah. I've had some where I actually seen the hair change colors when their broadhead went through the hide. Yeah, because the inside layer is a different color. It's more of a gray. So you got the brown tone on the outside. All of a sudden, there's a gray spot just show up. And what people don't realize is, even though you have a real close shot, if you're really, really close, like in your 5 feet range, 5, 6 feet range, you can't use your 20-yard pin. It ain't right.
No. Yeah, you're raising up.
Yeah, you got to shoot.
A lot of guys don't get that.
Yeah, you got to use like a 70-yard pin or something like that. I know I was at a 3D shoot one time, and there was a gator. It was on a platform. So it was up, I don't know, probably 8, 9 steps. We're up, a few feet up. And the gator's only like 5 feet away from the platform. So it's almost like a straight down shot. And I knew on my bow, at 5 feet, I got to use my 70-yard pin. So I come up and, a lot of people take and just start bending the arm down. No, that's not your form. That changes everything. And so you're bending. So I'm leaning against the rail and bending over. I finally got far enough to get that 70-yard pin on. And then I released, nailed it, right where it's supposed to go. And others say, well, I'll just sight down the arrow. Have you ever sighted down the arrow and shot before? No, yeah, it don't work. And I know some 3D tournaments as that they purposely set the targets really, really close, just for that reason.
Yeah, there's everybody's all sprawled, or whatever the word would be, for the long ball shot. Everybody wants to make the 80, 90, 100 on the elk or the buffalo or the caribou, or whatever. When it comes down to it, it's like, put it on that top 12 ring on the skunk that's 1 foot in front of you from 15 feet high off the platform. That's a hard shot. Right. That's a real hard shot.
Yeah. Well, and those long shots, I can't do those very well anymore because I don't see that well at distances.
Right,
and when you start getting a little bit of cataract forming in your eye, then it gets a little blurry. So when I draw back, I got fiber optic pins. My pins have a black dot in the center of them. There's no dot in the center. That's just what my eye sees. And, because I see double, I have prisms on my glasses that, help that. But I've always seen 2 sets of pins. So my left eye has always been the blurry eye. The right one's been the clear eye. So my mind just ignored the dim set of pins. I just don't even notice them anymore. If I look for them,
now, do you shoot both eyes open?
Yeah, I shoot both eyes open. I target, when I do targeting, I close one eye. So I was, didn't realize it, but now my right eye is a little blurrier than my left eye. And so I'm drawn back on this deer, and the pin is right where it's supposed to go. I shoot. I hit it back and hit the artery in the back hip. And I'm like, I know that pin was right there where I wanted it. Not realizing that all of a sudden my mind's picking up the bright set of pins, ignoring the dim set, which is now the right eye instead of the left eye. And I went down to the range, target, close one eye, nailed it, open it up. I'm off by 3 feet with both eyes open. It's like, what? So I closed the eye. Then I figured out, oh, okay. My mind is picking up the clear pins and then ignoring the other ones. So then I found it, because I always normally wear a baseball cap if I have a hooded sweatshirt on. As I turn my head, the hood blocks my left eye. Problem solved.
There you go. Yeah.
You got to work through whatever your problems are. You have to adapt for it. And, making those long shots, I just, I don't see clear enough with the right eye anymore. And I'm not going to switch left-handed just because I got too many bows right-handed bows.
On that.
I mean, shooting right-handed.
I had to go to the illuminated scope this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I got fiber optic pins
that low light. Right, yeah. I was having trouble getting the focus on the reticle.
Yeah.
And then on target, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. And I know it's going to be a problem at the worst possible moment,
Right. Yeah, so you just got to adapt, what you got to do, you had to go to the crossbow because, the physical problem. I had one guy that's actually in the group that he, come in, a lot of them come into the Archery Talk 101 group, which is the Facebook group that I have. And we have a lot of people in there that are looking for advice and help. And we have archers in there. Some have been shooting for 60, 70 years, and others have been shooting for maybe 6 or 7 months, the whole range. And he wanted a little help with his form. And so I gave him a couple of critiques, and I actually got on a call with him. And one of the things was, his hand, the holding hand was not right. And he said, well, that's all his wrist will bend. That's all he could do. So I got on a call with him, and we worked through a problem. And he was grouping, I'd say probably 6-inch groups went before this. And then, a few weeks after that, he sent a picture of 3 arrows touching.
There's, are you familiar with New Era Archery? Nick Albanese out of New Jersey, Zeus Broadheads and that. He makes a product called Steady Form, and it's a brace that mounts on the backside of the riser, and it braces the forearm here for form issues.
Oh yeah,
that's a fantastic product for that. I would highly recommend. Nick's got a bunch of awesome stuff coming out of there. That's actually one of the guys that I staff for. Great guy, and I mean, obviously that doesn't apply to me to study the brace, but in a situation for the gentleman you were just referring to, I think that something like that would probably greatly help him.
Kind of like the pistol brace they come out with for people that can't hold it. That's to help hold the pistols.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something to help them. Like bowlers use a brace on their wrist to keep the wrist from bending when they're bowling, and it's just an aid to help you do better.
Exactly. Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Yeah. Now, what's the link for his website?
It would be www.neweraarchery.com.
Okay.
Or you could just type in, if you were to Google it, you could do New Era Archery or Zeus Broadheads. That's actually pretty much all I run nowadays or at all selectively on any of my hunting rigs is his stuff there. Fantastic.
Okay.
Huge wound channels, fantastic.
Yeah, I just brought up his website just so I can remember, and
if you look
products in there.
You'll see that Steady Form. I don't know exactly on the website. It would probably be under like other products, not under the Broadheads part, but like other products, and you'll see it's called. Find it.
Yeah, I actually under there it's got it blank for Steady Form.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
Oh,
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it just attaches to the back of the riser, and
exactly,
because there's normally on most bows now there's a threaded insert on the back of the risers, so that's what it looks like. It fastens right into there, and then right on your wrist to help you hold it. And
right.
That's something to keep in mind when we run into somebody that has a problem with that grip. They just can't hold it steady, or problem with the wrist or something.
Exactly. Yeah, and I know a lot of guys in that group, in the staff page, those guys will use that in the field quite a bit, and I could see where a tool like that would be very useful, especially with the new craze of like saddle hunting, where you're very free, and you're going to want to come up, and it keeps that, the hand holding the bow versus the draw hand, it keeps that form, and because it's all about form, right? It keeps that form true to how it should be. So you get.
Yeah, because your form is, when you're shooting on the level, and you don't move your arm or anything up and down, you have to bend at the waist up or down. And it's real easy. You start doing that to start dropping that wrist. Well, that would help keep that going when you're all your shots out of compromised position. Sitting in that saddle. I prefer a hang on or a ladder stand myself, but I've never hunted out of a saddle, so I don't know. But
yeah, I with my neck condition and all, I give it a try, and maybe we'll start at like 3-4 feet in May, June. I don't know that that's something that you're going to catch me climbing up a tree with that. I had actually years ago, and I was just talking to another guy about this this morning before we headed out. I actually was in the stand this morning. Climbers and that, I had a pretty negative experience years ago in an old API climber. I had a bottom fall out on me, and luckily I listened to one of the older guys to make sure you tether it together, top to bottom, tether it together, they'll fall. I'm like, okay, it's probably never going to happen to me, but I'll do it anyway. Sure enough, it happened. Later that year, it was late season, and I had one tag left to fill, and I was on a public property in Wilmington, Illinois, at a place called the Propagation Center, where they raise pheasants to release for pheasant hunting. It's like a game farm where they raise the birds, and you can qualify to hunt there, and I did. And it was a cold day, late December, something like that, and it had snowed, and I was sitting on this cut crop field, and I got about 3/4 of the way up, and both the top and bottom dropped and came down about 8 feet. And after that, I'm like, never again. I will never use a climber again. And it was in the dark, mind you, of course, like 5 a.m. or whatever. So yeah, nope. I like my ladder. Put my backpack up there, get comfy. Not the most mobile setup, but it's all right.
Yeah, it probably enough ice on the tree itself from being snowy that it was just slick and didn't have anything to grab into. And
yeah,
yeah, come around here.
Where it notched into the tree, and then the cable, not even like the plastic coated cable,
Almost like the guys that do the tree climbing, got the spikes on their feet and just the pressure on there. And if you get too close to the tree, you just start sliding down.
Yep.
I know.
I did not have a good mix for that day.
Here in Nebraska, we don't have too many straight trees that we can climb up in. So in a lot of places, ladder stands or hang-ons are the only way you can really go. The climbers just, the property I'm hunting now, there is no straight trees. The only thing straight would be a telephone pole.
Okay.
And there's none of those running through there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got a lot of open field out there.
Yeah, a lot of open field. I put some cameras up. We put 6 cameras up on this property we're hunting, and the guy says, I haven't been seeing any deer too much. So I put up one on going in, and I thought a little buck, and just a little brow tine, another little short one come in there one morning, and 2 days. I had them out for a week, 2 days, and then coyotes and rabbits and squirrels and raccoons, and then on a couple of the other ones, mostly just birds, and then a couple of them, when I went to set them up, I hit the button and turned them off, so I didn't collect any images. But they didn't have one down at the other end. I didn't really see much sign. I put it up, and a bigger buck come through there, and 3 does come through there one morning. So it's like, that might be a good place to set up.
Yeah. It's probably about that time over by you guys as well, huh?
Yeah. Our rut's normally about the 2nd week in November, just in time for rifle season. The second week in November, that for 10 days is our rifle season, which is right during the rut. So they kind of take away from the archers. I know one year they had moved it, and I was a deer check station at the time when I had my store, and that week that they moved it, the archers come in during the rut. I was checking in nice big bucks for archery. Before then you get some here and there, but that week just full of really nice deer coming in from archery. Because the rifle hunters didn't get option then; they had it just after the rut, which they're still going to get good hunting time. It's just they don't get the peak of the rut that one year, but then they moved it back. Too many of the rifle hunters complain because they couldn't have the rut and have the easy hunt.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we don't. Illinois no longer has the check stations, as far as I know. I think that's something that it might not be. I mean, it's obviously it's a manpower thing with having DNR available and agents to man a check station, and I know that in Illinois they're so understaffed that it's bad news.
Yeah. Now what they, at least last time I checked anyway, for archery, you didn't check them in. For rifle, you had to check them in. But when I was at check station, that was almost 20 years ago. So it's been a while. Now I haven't checked because I got to look at what the laws, they seem to change them, every once in a while. So you just got to check them before you go out. And, okay, what are the rules for doing it? Just so you make sure you do it right. You always got to know that. And, there's a lot of different options. So yeah, now I know that where we're hunting there, we got to be there in the morning. Because at night and the mornings, the only time we're seeing them, on the week I had it out on the cameras that I did have turned on.
Right.
So I think I have them all turned on now, so I'll let those run and then go check them here. Nice thing I'm retired, so I can go anytime.
Right. I've got decent movement. I got some nice bucks. Almost everything's nocturnal still. Every once in a while you'll get one that'll run through it, early, like probably first 15 minutes of shooting. But I'm off work on vacation November 5th through the 15th, and I'm really hoping that it was warm for a while here, so now we got stabilized to about lows of about 40 and then highs right in that 55 range. And if that stays stable for the next 2 weeks, it should be good to go. I have at the property I'm on now, the corn is still standing, so that's an issue. But I think that they'll still push through, and they'll be in the woods. So I don't really foresee it being too big of a problem. I just got to play my cards right, and obviously play the wind right, being the most important thing. So I got a couple good ones on camera. Hopefully I'll get a shot at.
Yeah, I got one nice one down at the other end where I seen the 3 does that one morning. There was a pretty nice looking buck. Probably not as big as that one in behind you, but
yeah, that's like 118, 117, something like that. That's not a monster. 10 point. Actually, that's off the property I'm on now. I took that that's last year, November 7th on Veterans Day.
Was a nice gift for that day.
Yeah, thank you.
So what are your kind of your goals now? Because I know you're into crossbow for hunting. What are you looking to get into the next few years?
At this, I don't know. I'd say as far as hunting wise, I've kind of graduated more into. Like prime example this morning, I had a nice doe come out 20 some yards, and I just turned the Tacticam on. I have it mounted on the rail next to the scope on the bow, and I'll tell you, I had as much fun or enjoyment out of just watching her, do doe things out in the field and not know that I was there. She had no clue, which was pretty awesome. Like I came home real quick, I popped the SD card out, put it in the other SD, the larger, and loaded it up. I had to see the footage. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. She had no idea I was there, just wandering around. And any other goals? I'd like to be able to try to get back into regular archery, or maybe even to like trad, but with work and kids, it's hard to dedicate the time to be good at it. I believe that, it's like the old adage of a guy that you want to either duck hunt or water or deer hunt. If you're going to be good at it, you should dedicate all of yourself to the one,
right.
So I feel like with my sons wanting to fish in that, there goes a lot of the time into what I would have to put into, like, getting back into archery to give it everything I have. And I don't want to take anything away from them. I mean, if they got into it, cool. I had my oldest out last year, slug season, and it, we didn't see anything, but it was still awesome. It was a great time, me and him sitting in a blind. I don't know if they're at the point yet where they want to really hunt or get into it. I think it's more of a hanging out with me type thing. they're definitely into the fishing thing for sure. Like that's all they want to do. So I mean, I'll 100% support that. Unfortunately, my son was actually looking, or had made mention of talking, wanting to be on the bass fishing team at his high school, but they took all the extracurriculars away, and that was one of them. So he
Yeah.
kind of got the short end of the deal on that, as a lot of people did, with other things.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of fishing, but as far as the archery thing, I don't know that. I would honestly say I like filming quite a bit. I enjoy, obviously, the hunt. I would like to make it out west and try to get on maybe an elk or even a pronghorn or something like that out west at some point. That's definitely a goal of mine. But as far as anything else is accomplishments in archery, I mean, I kind of feel like with the crossbow, there's no like 3D or target. I mean, I there might be. Actually, Mission, if I'm not mistaken, there is. Mission has a crossbow like team, right?
I'm not sure. I don't really follow the crossbow too much, but the problem I run into with crossbows is they normally bury the bolts in there so deep that a lot of targets they won't let you shoot at them because they bury in there so
Right.
deep. And I know when I had my range, you could shoot a crossbow in there, but you might get it buried in the backstop. So, I always recommend bring in your own targets. You have something to shoot in that designed to stop the crossbow.
Right.
And, they just, because they're so short for one thing, and then there's a little bit more power in them. And so they just seem to bury in, and then you can't pull them out. If you can't pull them out, then that's a hazard for the next shot. And
exactly. Yeah, they're clearly a much shorter. The bolt is shorter than the arrow, and the kinetic energy down range is so much more superior than that of a compounded. The one nice thing though is that versus an animal, unless you're way off, if you an inch one way or the other off your mark, you're probably going to get the job done just because of the impact.
Right. There's always that spot on the shoulder that arrows just don't go through.
No.
I hit it once and I was like, maybe 10 yards away, 70-pound bow, with a 100-grain Muzzy broadhead, and it didn't penetrate through it. And I've gone through the shoulder blade lots of times, but not that one bone up there. It just,
right.
You just don't go through it, and they run off and heal up, and away they go.
Yeah, they're pretty resilient creatures for sure. There's plenty of evidence of bad shots online if you look, of things you would think that, wow, how could this animal have possibly survived? And then you look at it and you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Right. I know one time I was out and this buck come by and had, one okay rack, and the other one just come up and just got flat. It was a defective rack. And so when I'm taking the back straps out, I heard a clink, one of those broadheads that the blades just kind of fit in there, not really solid. Must have hit it in the spine back there on the back strap, and the one blade come loose and then dropped out. That's why I don't use that kind, because they're just not very solid. And it just fine. Well, it did just messed up this rack, but everything else is just fine. You wouldn't even known it until I was taking the back straps out and hit part of the broadhead.
Right. Yeah, those like I said, I'm pretty particular with what I like to use. I select amount of stuff that I find that works, and I stick to it. Hopefully the stuff's around for a while. I seem to have this curse of, if I find something and I like it, it goes out of business, or they change it, or you can't find it anymore.
Yeah, I've had a few things like that is like, oh man, this really good, and next thing you know, it's like, can't get it no more.
Right. And then you find it online, it's either 8 times the price or whatever.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I started out with Muzzy broadheads. My first broadhead, the lady said, well, I asked her what broadhead should I use, and she said, well, Muzzy. I started off with like 4-bladed 125, and now I shoot a 3-bladed 100. I've been shooting that.
Oh, like the MX3.
Yeah, it just the original Muzzy broadhead. I still
Right.
shooting that same one, and my arrows. Well, my target arrows are about 360, 370 grains, and my hunting
Okay.
arrows are just right about 400. Because I tried some when PSE come out with what they call their hunter shaft. They had their
Okay.
Comp Pros, which is 1,000 straightness, and then they come out with the hunter shaft, which is 7,000s, and they're quite a bit cheaper because they were parts that they couldn't sell, the 3 or the 6, so they come with a hunter shaft. And when I first ordered them, what I was ordering my 300 spine on PSC, they go 100, 200, 300, 400, the stiffest, and of course they're heavier. Well, I ordered in the 300s because that's what I need for my draw length and my weight. Well, they actually were 400 weight, so they're heavier. So I got ready to replace them. Like, okay, I need to stay at the same weight because I don't want to redo all my pins. So I had some weight tubes. I was putting weight tubes in there to get the weight up. So those are on about 4.25, I think those are. But normally I don't hunt with the big heavy arrows, the big heavy broadheads. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. My bolts, I want to say, are like 4.25 right now, and I run 100 grain broadheads on it. But I
yeah,
like the heavier. I run a heavier bolt only because I think that I would sacrifice a little bit of speed, a little bit of feet per second for heavier kinetic hit
right.
on the end. There's a lot to be said about that penetration. Yes, speed kills. I 100% agree with that. But you start to get into like the 9mm versus 45 argument,
Right.
and like that, that could be like Bears, Packers, Bud Light, Miller Lite, Chevy, Ford, Dodge trucks. You can go all day on that. You get 5
There's
guys in the room.
advantages to both. That I have both, and
Right.
you could one's has an advantage, and has a disadvantage because of the same advantage, and the same thing with broadheads, and arrows, so it's all the same
Right.
thing. You got the mass but slower, or you got lighter but you got the speed, and I looked up, the kinetic, I forget what it's now, the kinetic energy required, to efficiently kill a deer. And I looked at my bow, and I had a chart that showed it, and I got enough kinetic energy out to well over 100 yards with what I'm shooting. At 10
Right.
yards to 20 yards, I got plenty.
Yeah.
I shoot 70 pounds. The guys that are shooting, in your 50, 60 pounds, then, you're losing a little bit there. But, I'm shooting my hunting bow is a PSE Carrera. It was rated at 320 feet per second. This is a 2001 bow. And of course, I'm not getting anywhere close to that because you never will, because you're not shooting
Right. Yeah.
exactly the setup. My draw length's a little bit shorter. My arrow's a little bit heavier. I'm shooting a kisser button, and I've got a peep, and I got a loop on there, and I got string silencers on
Right.
there, and everything else to make it more shootable and quieter is all going to slow it down. But I'm still shooting, good speed out of it. I don't remember now what it is because I haven't chronoed it since I set it up.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the speed don't matter. I don't care what the speed is. I just, I got my 20, 30, 40, and 50 yard bins, and I guess yardage, and it goes where I put it. So,
Right.
I don't care about the speed of the mass.
Yeah, on mine it's rated, I think, 425 feet per second and 160 some pounds of kinetic, and with the bolt grain, I run the 100 grain broadhead, and then I got Aluminoc in the back. I'm probably closer to like 400, which 400 feet per second, you're still putting out, you figure 150, 148, 150, something like that foot-pounds. That is more than enough. I would not hesitate to take any shots of 40 yards. Yeah, I know there's guys that target shoot in practice, and you can shoot up to 70, 80. I don't do that. I'm not. At no point do I. For me, bow hunting has always been how close can I get, not how far. If it was a game of how far, then just go get the 30-06. I want to be so close I can smell them.
Right. And that's the difference between rifle hunting. 100 yards is a close shot. You know, when I just a few
Right.
times I've been out with the rifle and they're out at 100 yards and it's like, oh man, it's too far. Wait a minute, I got a rifle in my hand. That's normal shot for rifle. Like I'm still in the bow
Right.
hunter mode. You know, and I'm looking at closer ones. You
Right.
know, my first year I was about 20 feet up in a tree to get over some brush, and the deer was about 40 feet away. I was shooting 52 pounds with a 2117 full length arrow with 125 grain broadhead on it. And when I shot, that deer turned around and almost all my arrow was hanging out. This was from 40 yards away at 52 pounds with a big old heavy arrow. And it's all shot placement.
Right. That's another one that you'll see all the time on social media. You know, guys going back and forth arguing, you know, mechanicals and this broadhead sucks and this broadhead blah blah blah. And it's like if you hit where you were supposed to hit, they'll all, you know. Now, granted, there's a million and one X factors, right? So you want to put the
Right.
odds in your favor for the X factor. In what works best with you, and again, what you're hunting. You know, I'm not going to use the same broadhead on a whitetail that I would if I was in Africa on a Cape buffalo or something. You know, that's clearly
Yeah. It's just all, most of it's shot placement. And, and that's where, you got to practice. And I like shooting targets because then it develops your skill of putting the arrow where you want it. So I know if it's 25 yards and I have the gap between my 20 and 30 yard pin, I know that I'm going to hit that spot. Well, then I like to shoot I'm not really too much into shooting, 300, the target competition.
right.
I use it for my archery shooting skills. And then I do the 3Ds because then that helps you judge yardage, and then a little
Yep.
bit of shot placement. But the thing you have to realize, though, when you're shooting 3Ds, where you shoot a 3D target, it's not where you shoot the animal in the same spot.
Right. That 12 ring, Reinhardt and McKenzie never got that. I mean, some of them are, but for the most part, that 12 ring is not where I'd want to. On a lot of those, not where I'd want to put that arrow at. But it's most certainly a fantastic training tool and to keep you fast and sharp on the yardage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that animal is constantly moving. So you want to, you look, the yardage, and so it's not even a thought process anymore. It just happens. It's just an automatic thing. All these guys rely on the rangefinder now, and it's like, oh, I don't have my rangefinder. Well, how do you think we did it back? Before it became an affordable tool that everybody had in their arsenal.
Well, I just got me my first rangefinder last year. I got me a Vortex Ranger,
Nice.
good out to 1,800 yards. I hadn't even used it to range it because I used to take and I'd have a 30-foot rope in my backpack. And, before I could really judge, like in a field, it's hard to tell in the field exactly where it's at. So what I did is I had a loop on the end of it. I'd put the loop on my bottom peg. I'd walk out. I know that's 30 feet. That's 10 yards. I'd put a little flag on the ground. And then I would take and marker there. Okay, now there's another 10 yards. Now there's 20 yards out. And then I can do that, and, until you finally learn how to judge yardage. And, after a while, It's like, even with a rangefinder, if you use a rangefinder first, you're doing yourself a disservice. Guesstimate the yardage and then verify. Yep, I was off. Why am I off? And the hardest thing for archers is them uphill or downhill shots. Most people do not know how to shoot them. And I had like, well, you got to shoot low. Well, no, it's not really just shooting low. You got to know what the deal is. And, gravity works on arrow going straight down. I don't care how far it travels. It's gonna drop based on the linear distance, the horizontal distance. So I like to use your 3, 4, 5 triangle. Anybody that does any kind of construction knows a 3, 4, 5 triangle. You've got 3 on one side, 4 on the other side, and 5 across. So I like to use that as example. You teach somebody, what you really need to do is like, okay, you're 40 yards up on top of the hill, on top of the tree. You sight straight down at the deer. It says it's 40 yards, but the trail is 30 yards away from it. What do you shoot it for? Normal answer was 50. No, you just shot over its back, completely missed it. It's 30. And it's hard for people to understand, that. And so what I would do is I'd look at the trail, because I was in this situation one time where that deer looked like it was 40 yards away all day long. It looked like it was 40 yards away. I knew it wasn't. It's 20. I shot it for 20. I got it for 20. Because what I did is I looked at the trail, because I'm up so high, I found a tree, go straight up, judge yardage to that tree. That is where my distance is to that tree, not to the ground,
Right.
and then shoot for the ground. Then, of course, you got to remember the bend at the waist, and that's why I was using a
Right.
sling, because I don't hang on to the bow. If I ever didn't have my sling on and I shot it out of my tree stand, my bow would be on the ground. It'd fall because I don't hang on to it. That's what the sling's for.
Right.
Now people say, well, you need to hang on to your bow. No, that's what the sling's for. When you hang on to the bow, it changes the way it shoots. So
Right.
yeah, I've been teaching for many years, since 95. And then
Okay.
I spent 20 some years doing martial arts, and I kind of combined the two into, in martial arts as well as in archery, you want to put your power to your target. And, so I kind of explain a little bit differently. When you're holding your bow and you're shooting, that hand should go straight to your target. If when you're done, that arm is extended and it's not pointing at the target, you're holding it wrong. Because what you're
Right.
doing is you're pulling it to one side or the other. And I like to, show them, it's like, you should be off to the side like this, and people come and turn this way. So now they're at a steep angle. And then it's okay, put your hand out. Okay, resist. I'm going to push on your hand. So I move it away, their hand goes out. Like, that's what you're doing to the bow every time you shoot. Where if you're pushing
And not to
straight,
mention the fact that you're working it at the cam or the wheel,
right.
and that
So that,
in theory could cause a derailment of the string.
right. And that's if you're gripping your bow. Some people grip it, and then they'll grip it so tight they'll start turning their wrist out. And now then the bow is here, the cam's at an angle, and your string's back here. And when you shoot, you can easily take that come off. And that's what happens sometimes when people will let down. They'll draw back with their fingers and then go to let down. And in the process of letting down, they're keeping their hand over here, and their holding hand twist that a little bit. Next thing, boom, snap right off the wheels.
One thing, and I know, and I haven't shopped for a new bow in a long time, but the Matthews with the wooden grips, I really, really liked the wooden grip, never a glove on that hand. Your natural oils in your hand, it would just pivot so nicely and just sit right there, and you could just move how you want. I don't like the rubber, because the rubber is there for grip. Well, I was always the opposite. I don't want grip. I want that to just literally pivot. So it could do what I wanted with this hand. So where this hand was is where that went, And that why they got away from that, I don't know. You may be able to still get it like on their accessories or upgrade or whatever it might be, but yeah, you see so many of these with these big giant bulky grips. It's like, what? Huh? Like, you're not
It's
choking the thing,
It's not natural. I tell people, it's like, hold your hands down at your sides and then bring them up. And then when you bring it up, just tilt your wrist. And this is the, like this there. And you get the big fat grips. Now your hand's like this. And now you can't keep it straight. It's the same thing,
you're flexing that forearm muscle, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, the skinnier the grip, the easier it is, because your hand in natural position is only maybe an inch wide at most. And you start putting them on it. And one time I had some of those wraps, the Limb Saver wraps, and I put one of those on there, and I was like, I took it right off. I was like, I don't like it. It's too fat for one thing, because it makes it even wider. And then it kind of sticks to your hand. It won't settle down in there like you want.
Right. The wind grip.
Yeah, all mine have wood grips on them, whether it's a solid rip
Right.
or just, most of them are just the slide pieces on them. Of course,
Right.
I have old bows. My hunting bow is a 2001 PSE Carrera, and then my other target bow is a 2003 PSE Scorpion, of which the version I have, they only made 1 year, and then they made it into mine's a 2 cam. The next year they come out with a 1 cam, then they dropped it altogether.
Right. Yeah, they've definitely come a long way for where they're at now.
Yeah,
So is the pricing.
yeah, and now the bows are getting so short, they're getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You got your 28, 29, maybe a long bow might be 32 or 34, and they're just so short. When you have a 29-inch draw length, actually I'm 29 and a half, but I shoot 29, a little extra bend in that arm. I can wear a big heavy park in wintertime. I still don't hit my sleeve. You
Yeah.
stretch them out. I've had them work before I knew, out so far that it hit my arm and made the arrow do weird things. I still ended up getting the deer, but it hit back and hip. It just hadn't laid down, and where it ended up laying down, I could see it, but there was a tree right in the way. I couldn't take another shot at it because there was a tree right where I had to shoot. So I just had to wait, and it finally bled out. But it's all because hit my sleeve because I didn't know any better. And I always like it when people show their forearm all just black and blue and purple, and my comment is drawing's too long.
Or you ever see on like the videos or the reels or whatever on Facebook, and you'll get some scantily clad woman or whatever, and they'll be drawing and they'll all the way up here and come down. I'm like, what? Come on. Like, what are you guys doing?
There are a few ladies out there that are really good archers, but I could make them a little better because I could tweak their form a little bit. But there are some that are really good shots. There's some really good shooters out there. I know there's one lady, she shoots recurves, and she'll shoot aspirin, she'll shoot cards, she'll shoot all kinds of very, very good. And
yeah, the trick shot stuff is always entertaining.
Right. Yeah. And it's all, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill. She makes it look easy.
The farthest into that I ever got, I bought I might have traded for it, a Bear Kodiak Magnum, and I got some flu arrows, and we were screwing around, and we actually went out pheasant hunting with it. And I was up in front, and a couple of my buddies were behind me with shotguns. And the dog kicked the bird up, and I drew back and I smacked it. I hit it in the rear, spun the bird around. It went down, and then it ran on foot, got back up, and then they finished it with the shotgun. But I can say that I have taken a bird out of the sky in flight with a recurve. One time I've done it. People saw it. It happened.
Well, it's one time that how many can say they've actually hit one?
No, it was more luck than anything.
Yeah. Nah, yeah, good skill.
Can throw discs all you want, but when that bird comes up and it's zigzagging, yes, pheasants are slow and they don't kick up, as fast as, other quail or something, a relatively large target. But I did do it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I haven't ever tried that. I'd have to use a recurve because I couldn't use a compound. I mean, when I shoot a recurve, it's instinctive. I don't look for sights. I don't look down the arrow. I don't reference off the bow. I look at the target. I draw back and I shoot. I get a compound in my hand. Completely different story. My mindset changes. I'm drawing back. I'm looking for anchor point. I'm looking for the kisser button, the peep, and the touching the nose and getting the right pin. And I can't shoot a compound fast. And I've tried instinctively shooting a compound, but as soon as I put the compound in my hand, my mind goes to that style of shooting. I put a recurve in my hand, my mind goes to the other style. It's just like, any weapon. It's different weapon.
Breakover too.
Right.
When the cam breaks over and you're at hold, it's like it doesn't feel right. You want it's snap shooting. It's just fast. It's got to be.
That's what my recurve set up for bow fishing. I don't use it
Yeah.
for hunting deer just because I don't want to take the time to get good enough to use the recurve.
Mm.
You know, right now it's hard enough to keep time to do the compound, of which I got to finish setting my bow back up.
Right.
It's taken a while.
Yeah.
Doing everything else and maybe working on my own stuff.
Bow fishing is fun. My buddy has a setup, and we screwed around with it a little bit over the summer. I was having the very mental problem of aiming low part and the prism of the water. And
Right.
I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get it. I'm sure if I practiced at it enough, I'd probably figure it out.
Yeah, I had somebody one time ask about something about shooting fish in the water and stuff. So I actually created a YouTube video one time. I took a glass of water and filled it up and then put I think it might have been my steel for sharpening knives in there, and then show the angles of the size so you can see the refraction. So it hit the water and it kind of shifted over immediately. And then depending on where you're at, because they were talking about
Right.
at different distances. Well, it depends on how deep it is, and then the further
Right.
away it is, the more it's going to likely skip off the water. So you got to have the right angle, and then how deep are they? Because if they're on the surface, then you pretty much
Right.
aim where they're at. As they get deeper and deeper, they're off more and more. So that's a challenge when you're trying to figure out how to shoot a fish when it's in the water, because you're not there. And then if you don't have polarized glasses, now then it's hard to see down there.
Right. And then judge the depth of the fish.
Right. How
Usually,
deep is it?
Carp are a big enough target, But there's some videos online of and I don't think it was in America, it might have been South America or Southeast Asia. And these guys were off of a bridge and they were bow fishing for food. And they were hitting, tilapia sized fish. I don't know what the fish was, but I mean these guys were like on point. It was really impressive. They were, one after another, and it was in a large body of water off of wasn't a footbridge. It was 30 feet off the lake or whatever it was. Definitely a cool video.
Yeah, that's that way when you have to depend on that to eat, you kind of
Right.
you get good.
Right. Yeah. No choice but to get good.
Yeah, it's like many years ago, the kid would go out hunting to get food, and you got 3 bullets with you. You better bring back 3 animals. One shot. You don't have ammo to waste because it's not unlimited
Right.
ammo. Like we're more used to that now, where you've got unlimited. Same thing with the arrows. We have lots of arrows. It's not like we have to take a stick, get the right stick and form it down and size it and shape it and got it. It's not hours work to make a dozen arrows. We just go buy a dozen arrows and put them together and go.
Yeah.
If you're fletching them, that's the longest time, depending on what you're fletching with. If you're using fletch tight, now you're looking a little bit longer, but the new CA glues, if you're using those, there you stick it on, go. A dozen arrows don't take you long.
Right. Tree sap and twine.
Right. So it all just kind of, what do you have access to? And, no matter how easy it is to get the arrow, I still hate losing any of them,
Right.
or breaking them.
Oh yeah, that's always a come on, just seeing money, dollar signs roll through your head.
Yeah. Well, and every time you shoot at a deer, if you get any part of your arrow back, that was good. If you can
Right.
recover your broadhead and arrow, that's even better, because you just sharpen it and clean it up, refletch it. Because I shoot feathers, so when you go through the area, they get kind of messed up. So it's just easy, just cut them off and refletch them. If you're using vanes, you can just wash those off. But I use feathers.
Right.
Still old school from starting out in the '60s with feathers. I still shoot 4-inch feathers.
Do you? That one on the wall back there that bolt came out. The broadhead still functions. The bolt was not cracked, fractured. The luminoc in the back still lights. That one is still in circulation. It's marked down to like number 3 in the quiver.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not my top choice, but it's still in rotation. It will be used if needed.
Yeah, I know arrows now are getting really good. I know when the carbons first come out, I looked at them and it's like, there's no way I will ever shoot one of those. Because the way they were originally made, you may or may not remember, but they were all straight carbon running from tip to knock. So it was all
Yep.
just straight rolled carbon. And when they broke, they splintered. So you get a
Yep.
whole bunch of little splinters. And I said, I'm not going to shoot into a deer or whatever I'm hunting and have that splinter and have all those carbon fiber fragments all over. Because if you
Hmm.
do happen to eat one, it's going to tear everything up as you're going through. So there's like no way
Oh
I
yeah.
would shoot them. And then they started coming out with the cross-weaved ones where they're
Yep.
one goes horizontal, one goes vertical. Now they're strong. When they break clean. They don't shatter. And it's like, okay, now. And then in 2001, when I bought the archery store, the PSE dealer, and the PSE arrows are coming out really good. They're really a good arrow. And then they were breaking really clean. Then they have what they call their X weave, which was, instead of being horizontal vertical, it went as cross at an angle, like 45 degrees each other. And those were supposed to be really tough arrow too. I've got some of those as well. But now they're tough. There was one day I was down when I had my store, I was down at the range shooting, and I had it was late. I shouldn't have been. I missed, and I sent that arrow clean through the steel commercial door, clear up to the fletching.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt the arrow. I just pulled
Really?
it out, didn't hurt the arrow. And then getting ready for hunting season, I had my broadhead target out because my target, I wouldn't shoot broadheads in it, but I had a separate broadhead target. And for
Hmm.
some reason, I missed. This muzzy broadhead hit the concrete block wall. The broadhead stuck into the wall, and it cracked the shaft right back where the insert was. And that's it. It broke off there. And I was able to cut that arrow down past any defects and give it to my son to shoot. I still have the broadhead in my arrows. Didn't even hurt the broadhead at all. That tricolor point on it stuck right in the concrete block. That didn't go in deep. It went in, maybe 1/16 of an inch, but enough to stick. Like, pull it out.
Right. Right.
Like, when you're tired, don't shoot.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
The point of the
Yeah,
story
that's
is
how mistakes happen.
when you start getting tired, quit shooting. It's you're only starting to make mistakes, and I did it twice.
Right. You'll do yourself a disservice and develop
Right.
poor form, poor habits. Yeah.
Yes. When you have your store, you're working from morning till night, and then it's like I need to get some practice in and get stuff set up, and then it's like,
Right.
yeah, oh, they're not working too well, and now my hunting bow, I was working on other stuff, I was working I worked at Bass Pro and Cabela's both, and in archery departments, and I'm working all that. I come home and I needed a new string on my hunting bow. I finally got, after a couple of years, got a new string on it. Then it sat for a few more years. I haven't done anything. And I still got to get it setting up with my new strings before I have to make new strings.
Right.
So I got to get that set up before I can even go out bow hunting this year.
Hmm.
Yeah. Then my
So yeah,
target
you
bow,
always got something
yeah,
going on.
my other target bow, I'm going through using that as lessons in the group, the Facebook 101, Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. I'm using
Right.
that as lessons on how to make strings and how to install them and setting them all up, and summer hit and garden come, and the next thing I know, I was like, I've got to get back to finishing that series up, and teaching people how to work on their own bows. And that's one of the things we do in the group, work on your bow. We've got bow techs like myself that have been doing it for 20 plus years and working on your form. If you have questions on your form, you just ask the questions or upload videos, and we'll review them. I've been coaching since '95, and we got other people that have been coaching just as long, if not longer. And there's a lot of people in there that have a lot of good information. And I know when I go out to some of the other groups, somebody have post like, well, how's my form, or what am I doing wrong? And you'll hear everybody has a different opinion. And some of them are completely wrong. It's like, oh, you're doing it
Right.
wrong. Well, just practice more. No, practice more don't do you any good if you're not doing it in good form. And, being an instructor for many, many years, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. And you have to modify for each person. You know,
Yeah.
for you to help you out with your problem, we would do something completely different than somebody, your same size, age, everything, that doesn't have that problem.
Right.
We're gonna have you shoot differently just because of physical limitations. I know I was able to meet, Nebraska has their outdoor expo, and I went
Mhm.
volunteered for it, and I got to meet, Matt Stutzman. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
He's Olympic archer in the
Okay.
Paralympics. He's the archer with no arms. He shoots a bow
Okay.
with his legs.
Okay.
I
I've
met
seen
him and
seen
talked to
videos
him.
of that online.
Yeah, yeah. I'd seen a video of him shooting against another guy with just one arm, and then he was there, and I got to meet him, talk to him. He's a really nice guy. So hoping to get him on the podcast one of these days, but get our schedules together.
That would be awesome. I'd love to listen to that.
Yeah, I just need to try and reach out to him again. Sometimes we send emails out that end up in spam. So you never know if they
Right.
make them or not. So
Right.
I'll try and get him on here one of these days and talk to him. And I know it's always interesting to talk to different archers and what's going on with them and everything else. It's just really, really kind of nice to chat. And that's why I like this podcast, because like I get to talk to guys like you and everybody else, and it's fun. Record it for
Right. Well,
posterity. And
yeah, definitely. I had a great time, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
yeah. Glad to have you on. And for my listeners, I do have a consultation call that I offer to anybody that would like to. It's 15 minutes long. I have a form that you fill out. You ask you some basic questions, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below. For anybody that's interested in that, just fill that out and then get a call. See if coaching might be for you. See if I can help you out. And the other way you can get information, like we talked about, is the Facebook group Archer Talk 101. There, it's all for beginners. Just go out there and join. I'll leave a link in the description for the link in there. Not talking right. I'll leave a link in the description below for the group. Yeah, sometimes the mind and tongue don't work together. And then the other thing you can do is go out to my website, archertalk101.com, and there we have information out there, as well as if I review a product, I'll put a link out there. If I find good products, I'll put links out there for that. So just get a hold of those in one of those three places. You can always get a hold of me. I'm available, and I think I'll check out the New Era Archery and check them out, and we'll leave a link in the description below for that place if you'd like to go out there, and also put a link out on my my website for it. So once again, I'd like to thank you for being on the call today, Bill. It's been real nice and enjoyable talking to you, and we'll have to
Thank you for having me, Roy. I appreciate it.
we'll have to continue this another time. So
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
Yeah, once again, my name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you next week.